She trembled on her wedding night. But her millionaire husband's touch made her feel safe. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. She trembled on her wedding night, but her millionaire husband's touch made her feel safe. This is a story of Emma, a woman who thought her life was finally falling into place when she married the man of her dreams. But little did she know, the night that was supposed to be the happiest of her life would make her question everything she thought she knew about herself, about love, and about trust. The day had started like any other, but it was filled with all the emotions that come with getting married. The excitement, the nerves, the thrill of starting a new chapter. She had spent hours getting ready for this day, her heart racing as she looked at herself in the mirror. She was beautiful. She was ready. But then, everything felt different when she walked down that aisle. The moment she saw her husband, Liam, standing at the altar, something inside her shifted. He was perfect, handsome, successful, the man every woman dreamed of. Yet, deep down, Emma felt a sense of unease she couldn't quite place. Was it the pressure of the day? The weight of the expectations on her shoulders? Or something else? She couldn't explain it, but it was there. As the ceremony continued, she felt her hands growing clammy, her breath shallow. She tried to calm herself, telling herself that everything was fine, that she was about to marry the love of her life. But in the back of her mind, there was a nagging feeling. Later that night, as the reception came to an end and they were alone in their hotel suite, Emma stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. The night was supposed to be magical, a celebration of their love. But as the moments passed, she felt more and more distant from Liam. The room felt cold, even though the heat was turned up. It was as if something was missing, something that she couldn't put into words. She could feel her hands shaking as she turned to face him, her heart pounding in her chest. Liam, she whispered, her voice trembling. Are you sure about this? He looked at her, his expression softening as he walked over to her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. His touch was warm, reassuring, but it didn't ease the fear that was slowly rising within her. Of course I am, he replied softly, his voice filled with sincerity. But Emma wasn't so sure. The unease only deepened. As Liam reached out to comfort her, she couldn't stop herself from trembling. It wasn't just the cold room. It was the feeling that something wasn't right, that she was standing on the edge of something that she didn't fully understand. Her thoughts raced, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this perfect man, this perfect life, was somehow too perfect. Just as the doubt threatened to overwhelm her, Liam pulled her into an embrace, his arms wrapping around her with a comforting strength. The warmth of his touch spread through her, and for a moment, the fear started to fade. She closed her eyes, letting herself be held by him. But in the back of her mind, she knew that this night would change everything. She just didn't know how yet. As she lay in his arms, her thoughts began to quiet. The only thing that mattered now was the feeling of being safe, of being with someone who cared for her. But as she drifted off to sleep, the questions lingered. Was this really love? Or was it just a fleeting comfort, a temporary escape from her own doubts? Only time would tell. Let's return to the main character and see how her journey unfolds. I will give you a moment to absorb everything as we continue our story. As Emma lay in Liam's arms, the night passed in an uncertain haze. Though the warmth of his touch comforted her, a deep unease lingered. She couldn't ignore the fact that the man she had just married, her supposed perfect match, was still a mystery in so many ways. The wedding had been everything she had dreamed of, a beautiful ceremony, the lavish reception, and the way Liam had looked at her with nothing but admiration in his eyes. But in the quiet solitude of their hotel suite, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The clock ticked slowly, and as the night wore on, Emma found herself wide awake, staring at the ceiling. Liam's breathing was steady beside her, and yet, she couldn't quiet her mind. She had to know more, understand more. She couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Liam, she whispered softly, her voice breaking the silence. He stirred beside her, his arm still wrapped around her waist. Hmm. His voice was thick with sleep. Tell me about yourself, she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. It was not a question she had thought she would ask on her wedding night. But here she was, desperate for some sort of truth. What do you want to know? Liam replied, his voice warm but guarded. Emma hesitated, not knowing where to begin. Everything, she murmured, her heart pounding as she stared at the wall. She needed to understand why she was so terrified, why something felt so off. I don't know. Just tell me what you want me to know. I've told you so much about me. About my dreams, my hopes, and my fears. What about you, Liam? Liam took a deep breath, and for a moment, Emma thought he might tell her the truth. Instead, he remained quiet. The silence between them stretched, and Emma felt her heart race in her chest. Finally, he spoke, but the words came slowly, carefully. I guess. I've always been focused on work. On building things. Making something of myself. I've spent so much time on that. I forgot how to really connect with people. Emma's eyes widened. She had expected some kind of answer, but not this. His words sent a chill through her, and the doubt that had been gnawing at her grew louder. But why? She asked softly. Why didn't you ever try to find someone to share all that with? Why didn't you let anyone in? Liam's voice softened. I guess. I was scared. Scared of letting someone get too close. Scared of losing control. My family, they were never really there for me. They cared more about the business than about me. I built everything I have on my own, but somewhere along the way, I forgot how to trust. I didn't know how to love. Emma listened to his words, trying to make sense of them. She could hear the pain in his voice, the vulnerability he had never shown to anyone. It made her heart ache. She had always believed that love was supposed to be the easiest thing in the world, but now, she wasn't so sure. Liam, she began, but she didn't know how to finish the sentence. She had never expected to hear these words from him. I think I've spent my whole life building walls around myself, Liam continued. Walls to protect myself from getting hurt. But now, with you, with this marriage, I don't know how to handle it. I don't know how to be the man you want me to be. Emma sat up, her heart heavy. I don't need you to be someone you're not. I don't need perfection. I just need to know that you're here with me. That you'll be there when I need you. I just need you to trust me, Liam. Trust me enough to let me in. She reached for his hand, and this time, he didn't pull away. Liam's grip tightened around her hand, his fingers warm against hers. I'm trying, Emma, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I really am. I just don't know if I'm ready for this. For you. For us. Emma's heart ached, but she knew this was the only way forward. She had to be patient with him, just as he had to be patient with her. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be worth it. We'll figure it out, she said, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside her. We'll figure it out together. The words hung in the air, a promise that neither of them knew how to keep, but a promise nonetheless. As they lay back down together, Emma felt a sense of calm settle over her. There was still so much uncertainty, but for the first time that night, she felt that maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. Maybe they could build something together that was real. In the darkness, as she drifted off to sleep in his arms, Emma felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. The following days after their emotional conversation were filled with a quiet understanding. Emma and Liam had made a promise to each other, a promise they weren't sure how to keep, but they were willing to try. Each day, Liam seemed to open up a little more, sharing fragments of his past and his fears with Emma. It wasn't much, but it was enough to show her that maybe, just maybe, they were both capable of building something real. Despite the unease that still lingered in Emma's heart, she found herself falling deeper for Liam. She couldn't deny that there was something about him, something that drew her to him, even when the doubts crept in. She could see the struggle in his eyes, the way he tried so hard to be the man she needed, even if he didn't fully understand how. But as the days passed, their connection grew. They started to understand each other in ways they hadn't before. Emma learned to trust him, and Liam slowly let go of the walls he had spent so long building around himself. It wasn't easy, but they were learning. One evening, after a quiet dinner, Liam took Emma's hand and looked into her eyes, his expression soft but serious. I know I haven't been the husband you deserved, he said, his voice tinged with regret. But I'm trying. I'm trying because I want this. I want you. I want us. Emma squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with emotion. I know, Liam, she said, her voice steady. And I'm here. I'm here because I want us to. We're in this together. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their words sinking in. It was in that silence that Emma realized how far they had come. Just days ago, she had been unsure of everything, but now, she felt something shift between them. It was a quiet understanding, but it was real. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and that was enough. The next few days were a blur of new beginnings. They took things slow, allowing their relationship to grow at its own pace. Liam, though still unsure of how to fully let go of his fears, was more present with her than he had ever been. He started to show up for her in ways she never thought possible. They laughed more, they shared more, and most importantly, they trusted each other more. As they spent more time together, Emma's heart began to heal. The anxiety that had plagued her on their wedding night slowly faded, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. She could see the man she had married for who he truly was, flawed, vulnerable, but capable of love. One afternoon, as they walked through the park, Emma glanced up at Liam, who was looking at her with a softness in his eyes that made her heart flutter. She had never imagined that this would be her life, married to a man like him, with all his complexities and uncertainties. But as they walked hand in hand, she realized that this was exactly where she was meant to be. Liam, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I know we've had our moments of doubt, but I don't want to go another day without saying this. I love you. I love you more than I ever thought possible. Liam stopped walking, turning to face her. He looked at her for a long moment, as if searching her eyes for any hint of hesitation. When he found none, he smiled, a warm, genuine smile that made Emma's heart skip a beat. I love you too, Emma, he said softly. And I promise, I'm going to keep trying. For us. They stood there for a moment, the world around them fading away. Emma felt like she was finally seeing Liam for who he truly was. Not just the successful millionaire, but the man who had learned to love, who had learned to trust. As they continued their walk, Emma realized that while their journey had been filled with uncertainty, it had also been filled with growth, love, and understanding. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was more than enough. As they walked back to their apartment, hand in hand, Emma couldn't help but feel grateful. Grateful for the man beside her, for the love they were building, and for the promise of a future that, while uncertain, was something they would face together. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but it was theirs, and that was enough. As the weeks went by, Emma and Liam's relationship continued to evolve, and with each passing day, they grew closer. The doubts that had clouded Emma's mind on their wedding night began to dissipate, replaced by a growing trust in Liam. She could see the effort he was putting in, the way he was slowly letting go of the walls he had built around himself. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was all she could ask for. There were still moments of uncertainty, moments where Emma would catch herself wondering if she was truly enough for him. But she pushed those thoughts aside. She knew that love wasn't about perfection. It was about growth, compromise, and understanding. And as they spent more time together, Emma started to feel something she hadn't expected, a deep sense of belonging. One evening, after a quiet dinner at home, Liam took Emma's hand as they sat on the couch, the soft glow of the lamp casting a warm light over the room. Emma, he began, his voice gentle. I know I haven't always been the easiest person to love, but I want you to know that I'm grateful for everything you've done, for being patient with me, for believing in us, even when I wasn't sure how. Emma's heart swelled with emotion as she looked at him. She had never imagined that this man, who had once been so closed off, could speak with such vulnerability. Liam, she replied softly, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I believe in us. I believe in you. Liam smiled, his eyes soft and sincere. He leaned in and kissed her forehead, a simple gesture, but one that meant more than words could express. As the night went on, they talked about everything and nothing, about their hopes for the future, about the things that scared them, and about how far they had come together. Emma couldn't help but think about how different things were now. Just a few months ago, she had been unsure of everything, of herself, of her place in Liam's life, of their future. But now, she could see a path ahead of them, a path they would walk together. The next morning, Emma woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside the window. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft light over the room. She stretched, feeling a sense of contentment she hadn't felt in a long time. As she turned over to look at Liam, still asleep beside her, she realized how much she had grown, how much they had both grown. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Liam stirred, his eyes fluttering open. When he saw her looking at him, he smiled sleepily, reaching out to pull her closer. "Good morning," he whispered, his voice rough with sleep. Emma smiled, feeling the warmth of his embrace surround her. "Good morning," she replied, her voice soft but steady. She couldn't help but think about how far they had come, from the doubts and uncertainties of their wedding night to this moment, where they had found a sense of peace in each other's arms. As the days passed, Emma and Liam continued to grow together. They faced challenges, of course. There were moments when their pasts threatened to resurface, when old habits were hard to shake, but they worked through it together. They learned to communicate, to compromise, and most importantly, to trust each other. They didn't have all the answers, but they were willing to find them, one step at a time. One afternoon, while they were walking through the park, hand in hand, Liam stopped and turned to Emma. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice serious. "I want to make this official. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. No more doubts, no more hesitations. Will you marry me, Emma?" Emma's heart skipped a beat as she looked at him, her breath catching in her throat. She hadn't expected this, but in that moment, she realized she had known all along. She had known, deep down, that this was the man she wanted to spend her life with. "Yes," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "Yes, I'll marry you." Liam smiled, his eyes shining with love and relief, and he pulled her into a tight embrace. As they stood there, in the middle of the park, surrounded by the beauty of the world, Emma felt something she had never felt before, a sense of home. This was where she belonged. This was where they belonged. And no matter what the future held, they would face it together. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. They knew that. But with each other, they had everything they needed. As they walked back to their apartment, hand in hand, Emma knew that the love they had built was not just a promise. It was a foundation they would build on for the rest of their lives. And with that thought, she smiled to herself, ready for whatever came next. The months that followed were filled with a quiet joy as Emma and Liam settled into their new life together. The proposal had come as a beautiful surprise, but the reality of planning a future together felt even more extraordinary. They weren't just building a life of luxury. They were building a life of love, trust, and understanding. Liam, who had once kept his emotions locked away, was now more open, more present. He had let go of so much of his past, the fear of getting hurt, the walls he had spent years constructing. And Emma, the woman who had once questioned if she was enough, was now filled with a quiet confidence, knowing she was exactly where she was meant to be. They spent their days in each other's company, finding new ways to grow and challenge one another. They were far from perfect, but they knew one thing for sure. They were in this together. One rainy afternoon, as they sat on the couch, sipping hot tea and watching the world outside, Liam turned to Emma, his expression thoughtful. "You know," he began, his voice soft, "I never thought I would be able to feel this way. You've changed me, Emma. I'm not the man I was before." Emma's heart swelled with emotion as she looked at him. He had come so far, and so had she. "I never thought I could love someone the way I love you," she said, her voice steady but filled with warmth. "But here we are, building something real." Liam smiled, a smile that was genuine and full of love. "We've built something beautiful," he said, taking her hand in his. "And we'll keep building it, every single day." As they sat there together, the world outside felt like it had faded away. In that moment, it was just the two of them. Two people who had found each other in the midst of their own struggles. Two people who had learned to trust, to love, and to fight for what mattered. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. And as they moved forward, Emma couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. She had married Liam thinking she was making the biggest mistake of her life, unsure of their future. But now, she couldn't imagine a life without him. The man who had once seemed so distant, so closed off, was now her partner in every sense of the word. They had found each other, not in spite of their imperfections, but because of them. And that was something Emma had never expected. One evening, as they sat together in their living room, Liam looked at her with a serious expression. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice heavy with thought. "I want to do something special for you. Something to show you just how much you mean to me." Emma raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What are you thinking?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Liam stood up and walked over to the piano, which had been sitting in the corner of their living room since they had moved in. He sat down and began to play a soft melody, the sound filling the room with a sense of calm and warmth. As he played, Emma sat in silence, captivated by the music. She had never heard him play before, and she could tell that this was something deeply personal to him. When the music stopped, Liam looked up at her, his eyes searching hers. "This song," he said softly, "is for you. It's a reminder of how much I love you, how much you've changed me. I want to spend the rest of my life showing you just how much you mean to me." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she looked at him, overwhelmed by the gesture. She had never expected this kind of love, this kind of devotion. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Liam stood up and walked over to her, taking her hand in his. "You don't have to say anything," he said softly. "Just know that I'm here, always. And I'll love you, always." Emma leaned in and kissed him, her heart full of gratitude and love. In that kiss, she knew that they had built something real, something that would stand the test of time. The road ahead would not always be easy, but as long as they were together, they knew they could face anything. And so, as they stood together in their living room, the music of their love playing softly in the background, Emma realized that this was just the beginning of their story. The journey they had started, the love they had built, was only going to grow stronger with time. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that no matter what came their way, they would always have each other. The days after the piano moment felt like a dream. Emma and Liam continued to grow together, learning more about each other every day. They were no longer just a newlywed couple. They had become partners in every sense of the word. As the weeks passed, they began to share more of their pasts, those things that had once shaped them into who they were, and the things they feared might tear them apart. Liam, once so closed off, was beginning to trust Emma in ways he never thought possible. And Emma, who had once been overwhelmed by uncertainty, was learning to embrace the love that was now blossoming in her heart. They spent quiet nights together, cooking dinner, sharing stories, and simply enjoying the comfort of each other's company. Emma found herself more and more in love with Liam every day, not because of the wealth he had, but because of the man he was becoming. He was kind, thoughtful, and present. He wasn't perfect, but he was perfect for her. One afternoon, as they were walking through the city, Liam turned to Emma with a serious expression. "I've been thinking about something," he said, his voice calm but deliberate. Emma raised an eyebrow, sensing the weight of his words. "What is it?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Liam took a deep breath before speaking. "I know we've talked about our future before, but I think it's time we take the next step. I want to build something more than just a life together. I want to build a family. I want to have kids with you, Emma." Emma's heart skipped a beat as she looked at him, her mind racing. They had never really discussed children before. Sure, they had talked about the future, but the idea of having kids had never been part of the conversation until now. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice soft, but filled with doubt. "I mean, we've only just started to really figure things out." Liam smiled, his eyes full of warmth. "I'm sure," he said, his voice steady. "I know it might seem like a big step, but I can't think of anyone better to raise a family within you. You're everything I've ever wanted, Emma. You're the one I want to spend the rest of my life with, and I want to share that with children, our children." Emma's heart swelled at his words, and for the first time, she allowed herself to fully embrace the idea of starting a family with him. She had always dreamed of having children, but it felt like such a far-off goal. But now, with Liam by her side, she could see that dream becoming a reality. "I want that too," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "I want to have a family with you, Liam. I can't think of anything more beautiful than that." They stood there for a moment, hand in hand, surrounded by the bustling city, but in their own world, lost in the dream of their future. It felt like everything had led them to this moment, this decision to take the next step together. And as the days passed, their lives began to change. Emma started to plan for the future in a way she had never done before. She looked at their home, their lives, and began to imagine what it would look like with children. She was excited, nervous, and everything in between. But most of all, she felt ready. Ready to be the kind of mother she had always hoped to be, and to share that experience with Liam. Liam, too, seemed to be more at peace with the idea of fatherhood. He had always been so focused on his career, but now, with Emma, he could see that there was more to life than just success and achievement. He was ready to be the kind of father who would be there for his children, who would love and care for them with everything he had. As time went on, they began to talk more seriously about the logistics of starting a family. They visited doctors, talked to friends who had children, and began to prepare themselves for the life that was to come. It wasn't always easy, but they both knew that this was what they wanted. They were building something that was real, something that would last. And no matter what challenges came their way, they knew they would face them together. One evening, as they sat together in their living room, Liam took Emma's hand and smiled. "We're really doing this, aren't we?" he said, his voice filled with a mixture of excitement and wonder. Emma smiled back at him, her heart full. "Yes, we are," she replied. "We're building our future, Liam. And it's going to be beautiful." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their words sinking in. Emma realized, in that moment, that no matter what the future held, as long as they were together, everything would be okay. They were no longer just two people trying to figure out their place in the world. They had found each other, and together, they were creating something that was bigger than anything they had ever imagined. And with that thought, Emma smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning of their journey. As the months passed, Emma and Liam's relationship continued to deepen. The decision to start a family had brought a new sense of excitement to their lives, but it also came with challenges. They had always been a team, but now, as they prepared for parenthood, the stakes felt higher. Emma found herself planning more, organizing their home, and imagining the future in a way she never had before. Every decision they made felt like it was for something bigger, something more meaningful. Liam, too, seemed more focused on their future together. He spent more time at home, no longer feeling the need to work late into the night as he once did. He had realized that while success was important, it was family, Emma and the future they would build together, that truly mattered. One evening, as they sat on the couch together, Emma looked at Liam with a soft smile. "Do you ever think about how different things are now?" she asked, her voice quiet but filled with wonder. Liam turned to her, his eyes warm. "All the time," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I never thought I'd be here, like this, with you. But now that I'm here, I can't imagine being anywhere else. I can't imagine doing anything else." Emma felt a wave of emotion wash over her, her heart swelling with love for the man beside her. "I feel the same way," she said softly. "We've come so far, and we're just getting started. I'm excited for what's ahead." Liam took her hand in his, squeezing it gently. "Me too. I know it won't always be easy. But as long as we're together, we can face anything. We've already made it through so much." Emma nodded, her gaze softening as she thought about how far they had come. When they first met, everything had seemed so uncertain. She had been unsure of herself, unsure of Liam, and unsure of their future. But now, they had built something solid. They had built trust, love, and a deep connection that was stronger than anything else. She knew that with him by her side, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. As the days passed, Emma and Liam continued to prepare for their future. They spent evenings talking about names, about their hopes for their child, and about the life they wanted to give their family. They were no longer just a couple. They were building something bigger than themselves, something that would last for generations. One afternoon, Liam came home early from work, a thoughtful expression on his face. He sat down next to Emma on the couch, his eyes fixed on her. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice serious but filled with love. "I know we've talked about having kids, but I want to make sure we're ready for this. I want to make sure we're both prepared for everything that comes with it." Emma looked at him, her heart full. "I think we're more ready than we realize," she said softly. "We've been building this life together for so long, and now, we're just taking the next step. We'll figure it out, just like we've figured everything else out." Liam smiled, his expression softening. "I know, and I'm not worried. I just want to make sure we're doing everything the right way." Emma leaned in and kissed him, her lips soft and gentle against his. In that kiss, she felt the love they had built, the bond that had grown between them. It wasn't just about starting a family. It was about continuing the journey they had already begun. The next few months passed in a blur of preparations. They painted the nursery, picked out baby clothes, and made plans for the future. They were no longer just preparing for a baby. They were preparing for a new chapter in their lives. one that would be filled with challenges, joy, and a deeper sense of purpose. One evening, as they sat together in their living room, Emma looked at Liam. With a smile, "I can't believe how close we are to having a baby," she said, her voice filled with awe. "It feels like just yesterday we were talking about this, and now, it's actually happening." Liam took her hand, his eyes filled with warmth. "It's happening, Emma," he said softly, "and we're ready for it. We've got each other, and that's all we need." Emma smiled, her heart full of love for the man beside her. She knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. With Liam by her side, she felt like she could handle anything. And as they sat there together, the weight of their words sinking in, Emma realized that this was just the beginning. The journey ahead was filled with uncertainty, but it was also filled with hope. And with Liam, she knew that anything was possible. The day they had been waiting for finally arrived. Emma and Liam had spent months preparing for this moment, and now, it was time. The nursery was ready, the baby clothes were neatly folded, and the house was filled with anticipation. Emma, who had once been uncertain and unsure of her place in Liam's world, now felt a calm confidence wash over her as she stood by his side, ready for the next chapter of their journey. She could feel Liam's nervous excitement as he paced around the living room, waiting for the call. "Are you sure we have everything?" he asked, looking around at the preparations. Emma smiled, reaching out to take his hand. "We have everything we need," she said softly. "And we're ready." They had come so far, and now they were about to become parents. The weight of that reality settled in Emma's chest, but it wasn't a feeling of fear, it was a feeling of love. A love that had grown stronger with every passing day, every conversation, every shared dream. A love that was now ready to welcome a new life into the world. Finally, the call came. Emma's heart raced as she picked up the phone, her hands trembling slightly. Liam stood beside her, his gaze fixed on her, his breath held in anticipation. "It's time," Emma said, her voice filled with awe and excitement. Liam's face broke into a wide smile, and in that moment, Emma knew that everything they had been through had led them to this. They were about to become parents, and their love was about to grow in ways they couldn't even imagine. As they arrived at the hospital, the air felt charged with energy. The world outside seemed to fade away as they entered the delivery room, the only focus now on the new life they were about to bring into the world. Emma held Liam's hand tightly as the doctor prepared for the delivery, and though the pain and anxiety were real, there was a sense of calm in the room that came from knowing they were in this together. Liam's presence beside her was a steady source of strength. He had been her rock through everything, the uncertainty, the doubts, the fears. And now, he was here, holding her hand as they prepared to welcome their child. The minutes felt like hours, but finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Emma heard the first cry of their baby. The sound was pure and perfect, and it filled the room with a sense of wonder. Liam squeezed Emma's hand, his eyes shining with tears of joy. "We did it," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Emma looked down at their baby, a tiny, perfect little one, and felt her heart expand in ways she never thought possible. She had been afraid of the unknown, of what motherhood would bring, but in this moment, as she held their child in her arms, she knew that everything was exactly as it was meant to be. "He's perfect," Emma whispered, her voice full of awe as she looked at Liam. Liam smiled through his tears, his heart full of love. "Just like you," he said softly. In that moment, Emma realized that their journey had come full circle. The doubts, the fears, and the uncertainty they had once felt were now replaced by the most beautiful thing they had ever known: love. Love for each other, love for their child, and love for the family they were building together. They were no longer just two people figuring out life, they were a family. And this family, built on love, trust, and a willingness to face the unknown together, would weather whatever storms came their way. As they left the hospital with their newborn son in their arms, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of peace settle over her. The future was still uncertain, but, with Liam by her side, she knew they could face anything. They were no longer just two individuals trying to navigate the world. They were a family, a unit, a team. And no matter what the world had in store for them, they would face it together. As they walked out into the bright sunlight, the weight of the past seemed to lift, and in its place was the promise of a future filled with love, joy, and a new beginning. The journey they had started together had only just begun, and Emma knew that, with Liam by her side, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. Their love was their strength, and together, they would build a future that was just as beautiful as the family they had created. The months that followed were filled with the sweet chaos of parenthood. Emma and Liam quickly adapted to their new roles as parents, their lives forever changed by the birth of their son. It wasn't always easy, but with every late-night feeding, every baby giggle, and every shared glance of exhaustion, they grew even closer. Emma found herself falling more in love with Liam every day, not just as her husband, but as the father of their child. She saw him in a new light, his tenderness, his patience, and his unwavering support for her. They were a family, and together, they were building something beautiful. Liam, too, felt the weight of their love in a way he had never experienced before. The love he had for Emma and their son filled him in ways he never thought possible. It wasn't just about being a provider anymore. It was about being there, fully, for the ones he loved. He knew that the path ahead wouldn't always be smooth, but he was no longer afraid of the unknown. He had Emma, and he had their son. That was all he needed. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, their son asleep in his crib, Liam looked at Emma, his expression soft but serious. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice filled with thoughtfulness, "about everything we've been through. The ups, the downs, and I just want you to know, I'm so grateful. Grateful for you, for us, for this family. You've changed my life in ways I never expected." Emma smiled, her heart full. "You've changed my life too, Liam," she said softly. "I never imagined I would be here, in this moment, with you. I used to be so uncertain about everything, but now, with you by my side, I feel like I can handle anything." Liam reached over and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "We've come a long way," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "And we'll keep going together, no matter what." Emma nodded, her heart swelling with love. She knew that their journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. They had faced so many challenges together already, and though there would be more ahead, they were ready. With their son, with each other, there was nothing they couldn't handle. As the days turned into years, their love only deepened. They celebrated milestones, first steps, first words, first days of school, and with each one, their bond grew stronger. Their family was their foundation, and they had built it together, brick by brick, with love, patience, and a deep trust in each other. Emma and Liam knew that the road ahead would have its share of obstacles, but they also knew that with each challenge they faced, they would be stronger. They had already proven that they could weather any storm. They had built something real, something unshakable. And no matter what the future held, they would face it together. As they stood side by side, watching their son take his first steps, they realized that everything they had worked for, everything they had built, was worth it. They had created a family, a home, and a love that would last a lifetime. And in that moment, as they held each other's hand, Emma and Liam knew that this was just the beginning of their beautiful journey. Their love had transformed them, and it had transformed their lives. And with that love, they would continue to grow, continue to build, and continue to face whatever challenges life brought their way. Together.